Welcome back to Life Advice on You, where we tackle the truths no one else will. Whether you're here out of curiosity or sheer panic from that title, stick around, because what I'm about to tell you about aging and self-pleasure might just change the way you see it forever. Have you ever noticed how our relationship with self-pleasure changes over time? What might have once been a quick stress reliever in our younger days can take on a whole new meaning in our golden years, offering comfort, connection, and even a bit of healing. But let's be real. When does a perfectly normal, healthy habit start to feel a little complicated? In today's video, we're diving into the often overlooked world of masturbation in later life, from its surprising benefits to the emotional hurdles that can sometimes tag along. And before you think, "Oh no, this isn't for me," trust me, you might just relate to more than you expect. Stick around until the end, because we'll talk about how finding the right balance can boost not just your physical well-being, but also your emotional health. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content. Let's take a deep dive into a topic that's often tiptoed around, but deserves an honest, heartfelt discussion: pleasure in our later years. Society loves to pretend that intimacy and self-exploration fade with age. But what is the truth? It evolves, bringing new dimensions of comfort, self-connection, and even healing. In this conversation, we'll strip away the myths and uncover the real, unfiltered experiences of older adults who embrace this natural part of life. From the sheer joy of rediscovering one's body in a new way to the emotional complexities that sometimes tag along, guilt, loneliness, even a touch of nostalgia, this journey is more than just physical. It's deeply human. Whether you see it as a source of relaxation, a way to reclaim control over your body, or simply a feel-good moment in a world that sometimes feels overwhelming, there's no one-size-fits-all experience. This discussion is for those who have lived, loved, and are still learning to embrace themselves fully in every stage of life. So, let's set aside any old-fashioned taboos and talk about what it really means to nurture self-intimacy in our golden years, with curiosity, a bit of humor, and most importantly, without shame. Masturbation isn't just a simple act. It's a journey inward, a private moment of connection that nourishes the mind, body, and spirit at any stage of life. It's more than just physical pleasure. It's a way to relieve tension, explore personal desires, and embrace a deeper sense of self. And as we grow older, this experience shifts, becoming richer in meaning and more intimately woven into our evolving relationship with our bodies. Gone are the days when pleasure was driven by the wild intensity of youth, where hormones surged like an unstoppable tide. Instead, aging brings its own rhythm, a more refined and thoughtful approach to intimacy. Changes in hormone levels, shifts in sensitivity, and a natural slowing down of desire may occur, but that doesn't mean pleasure disappears. On the contrary, it transforms into something more personal, something that speaks to the wisdom of experience. For many in their golden years, self-pleasure is not just about satisfying an urge, it's about reclaiming a connection with the body. When society so often whispers that aging makes us invisible, masturbation reminds us that we are still here, still capable of experiencing joy, still deserving of pleasure on our own terms. It's an intimate act of self-care, free from external pressures or expectations. Gone are the worries of performance, the anxieties of pleasing a partner, the distractions of youth. What remains is pure, unfiltered self-awareness, an appreciation of one's body as it is now, not as it once was. The benefits of self-pleasure in later years extend far beyond the physical. Yes, it keeps blood flowing, supporting genital health and preventing atrophy, but its emotional and mental rewards are just as vital. Science tells us that regular solo intimacy releases endorphins, the body's natural stress relievers, helping to ease anxiety, combat depression, and uplift the spirit. And let's be honest, in a world where aging can sometimes feel like an uphill battle, anything that brings a little extra happiness is worth celebrating. One of the most overlooked yet powerful effects of masturbation in old age is its ability to improve sleep. As anyone past a certain age knows, good sleep can be elusive. Yet the relaxation that follows an intimate moment with oneself can quiet the mind, soothe the body, and pave the way for a more restful night, without the need for pills or sleep aids. Charlotte Smith, a 65-year-old widow from Ohio. After her husband passed, she assumed desire was behind her, until a restless night led her to explore self-pleasure. What started as curiosity became a powerful act of self-care. Without the pressures of youth, she felt free to embrace her body in a new way. It helped her sleep better, eased her stress, and most importantly, reconnected her with herself. Beyond the physical and emotional benefits, self-pleasure plays an important role in self-acceptance. Aging can sometimes bring a sense of detachment from one's own body, a feeling that it is no longer quite our own. But in moments of private intimacy, we reclaim that connection. It is a way to remind ourselves that our bodies, no matter how much they change, remain a source of comfort and satisfaction. In a world that often sends the message that desire fades with age, masturbation stands as quiet proof that pleasure knows no expiration date. It is a deeply personal, profoundly empowering act, one that reminds us that we are still vibrant, still capable of joy, and still entirely worthy of experiencing pleasure in all its beautiful, evolving forms. Like all good things in life, chocolate, afternoon naps, and reruns of The Golden Girls, pleasure has its limits. When enjoyed in moderation, self-pleasure can be a wonderful, life-affirming experience. But when it becomes excessive or compulsive, especially in later years, it can start to create unexpected challenges. Physically, too much stimulation can overwhelm the nerves, making them overly sensitive. At first, this might seem like a good thing. Who wouldn't want heightened sensation? But over time, it can backfire, leading to discomfort or even a frustrating dullness where the usual touch just doesn't spark the same response. This can set off a cycle of needing more intense stimulation to feel satisfied, only to end up feeling even less fulfilled. Emotionally, what once felt like a healthy act of self-care can start to bring feelings of frustration or even anxiety. Instead of being a source of relaxation, it turns into a habit that leaves you chasing something just out of reach. For some, this can lead to a sense of restlessness or even guilt, especially if it begins to interfere with daily life. There's a common truth about aging that few people like to talk about. Life gets quieter. The once bustling household, filled with kids running around, phones ringing, and a steady stream of social gatherings, slowly gives way to stillness. Friends move away, family members get wrapped up in their own lives, and the simple act of meaningful human connection becomes less frequent. In that silence, loneliness can creep in, subtly, almost unnoticed at first. And for many older adults, masturbation becomes more than just a pleasurable pastime. It becomes a temporary escape, a way to soothe the ache of isolation. At first, it seems harmless, maybe even helpful. After all, it's a moment of release, a way to reconnect with one's body and feel something real amid the emotional numbness. But over time, if it becomes the primary source of comfort rather than just one piece of a fulfilling life, it can quietly create more distance between a person and the world around them. Instead of seeking connection through a phone call, a shared meal, or even just a walk in the park, self-stimulation can become an easy substitute, one that asks for nothing in return, but ultimately gives back less than it takes. The tricky thing about emotional isolation is that it doesn't announce itself with a grand gesture. It's not like waking up one day and realizing I'm lonely. It happens gradually, Each missed opportunity for connection, each moment of retreat, each quiet night spent choosing the comfort of habit over the uncertainty of reaching out. And before long, what was once an occasional indulgence turns into something else, a routine, a refuge, a replacement for something deeper and more necessary. Now, let's be clear. There's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying self-pleasure. In fact, when done in balance, it can be a source of relaxation, a way to relieve stress, and even a method of staying in tune with one's body. But like anything, too much of a good thing can lead to unintended consequences. If self-stimulation starts to feel like the main source of comfort, rather than one part of a fulfilling life, it might be worth asking, what am I really looking for? Is it pleasure, or is it connection? Is it release, or is it reassurance? The reality is, true emotional fulfillment doesn't come from isolation. It comes from engaging with the world, however imperfectly. It comes from catching up with an old friend, laughing over a shared memory, or even just making small talk with a neighbor. It comes from touch, not just the physical, but the emotional kind that reminds us we are seen, valued, and understood. So, if you ever find yourself retreating a little too far inward, consider this. Balance is the key. Pleasure has its place, but so does community. And while there's nothing wrong with seeking comfort in solitude, the deepest joys in life often come from the moments we share with others. If you know someone who's struggling with loneliness, send them this video. It might change their life. From a clinical perspective, masturbation isn't just normal, it's healthy. In fact, studies show that self-pleasure in moderation can bring a whole range of benefits for older adults, from reducing stress to improving sleep and even helping maintain genital health. But, like with anything enjoyable, think dessert, TV marathons, or an afternoon nap that accidentally lasts 3 hours, too much of a good thing can lead to unintended consequences. Medical research highlights that when masturbation becomes excessive, meaning it starts replacing other important parts of life, it can take a toll both physically and mentally. For one, it can lead to unexpected fatigue, not just in the bedroom, but in everyday life. You know that feeling when you've overindulged in a rich meal, and suddenly all you want to do is lounge on the couch for the rest of the day? Well, excessive self-stimulation can have a similar effect, sapping energy and motivation. A study in the Archives of Sexual Behavior found that frequent ejaculation can temporarily lower dopamine levels in the brain. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, pleasure, and energy. For older adults, already dealing with age-related energy fluctuations, overindulgence in self-pleasure can contribute to a feeling of sluggishness or lack of motivation for other activities, like exercise or socializing. Another important factor is that staying active as we age is key to maintaining overall health. Exercise keeps our joints flexible, strengthens muscles, and supports heart health. But when self-pleasure takes the place of movement, it can contribute to a more sedentary lifestyle, which in turn increases the risk of heart disease, muscle loss, and decreased mobility. And then there's the social side of things. While self-intimacy is a great way to stay connected to your body, it shouldn't replace human connection. If someone starts choosing solo pleasure over social outings, friendships, or even casual conversations at the grocery store, that's a sign to take a step back and rebalance. Now let's shift gears and talk about something that doesn't always get enough attention: the impact of excessive solo time on relationships in our later years. Whether you're happily single, widowed, or still bickering with the same person you married decades ago, intimacy plays a huge role in emotional well-being. And while masturbation is a perfectly natural and healthy way to fulfill sexual needs, when it becomes the main event rather than an occasional indulgence, it can create unintended roadblocks, especially for those in long-term relationships. Imagine, you and your spouse spent years building a life together, sharing laughs, raising kids, maybe even navigating the occasional battle over the thermostat. But over time, instead of sharing those quiet, intimate moments together, one partner starts opting for the solo route a little too often. What was once a shared experience, filled with affection, closeness, and maybe even a few awkward but endearing moments, gets replaced with a private routine that leaves the other feeling sidelined. Slowly but surely, what was once a partnership begins to feel more like two people living separate lives under the same roof. For those flying solo, the issue is different, but just as important. When masturbation becomes the default way to cope with loneliness, stress, or boredom, it can inadvertently discourage seeking out new romantic or social connections. Maybe it starts as a harmless habit, but before you know it, the idea of dating, flirting, or even just engaging in meaningful companionship starts to feel like more effort than it's worth. The key here isn't to cut out self-pleasure altogether, far from it. Instead, think of it like dessert. A slice of cake after dinner? Delightful. Cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Maybe not the best idea. When it comes to relationships, maintaining a balance between personal pleasure and shared intimacy ensures that your connection with your partner stays strong. It keeps affection alive, communication open, and, let's be honest, adds a little spark to the mix. So, if you're nodding along and realizing that your me time might be overshadowing we time, consider making a shift. Small gestures, holding hands, a lingering hug, or even just sharing a laugh over an old inside joke, can reignite closeness in ways that no solo activity ever could. Because at the end of the day, the most fulfilling connections are the ones we build together. For much of human history, sexuality, particularly self-pleasure, has been shrouded in secrecy, treated as something to be hidden, controlled, or even condemned. Many of us grew up in cultures that framed desire as a force to be resisted rather than embraced, an indulgence that, if unchecked, could lead to moral decay. But as we move into the later stages of life, it becomes crucial to ask, whose voice still governs our sense of self? Is it our own, shaped by wisdom and experience? Or are we still carrying the burdens of a past that told us our bodies were something to be ashamed of? The paradox of desire is that it is both deeply personal and profoundly universal. It is one of the few human experiences that transcends time, culture, and even age. And yet, for many older adults, self-pleasure can feel like a battle between instinct and conditioning, between the innate longing for pleasure and the remnants of old beliefs that whisper, "This is wrong." This inner conflict, left unresolved, can chip away at emotional well-being, leaving behind feelings of guilt, isolation, and even self-rejection. But what if we reframed the way we think about pleasure? Instead of viewing it as something shameful or indulgent, what if we saw it as an act of self-care, a quiet affirmation of life's vitality? After all, we do not shame the body for craving food, nor do we judge the soul for seeking beauty, connection, or meaning. Why then should we condemn the very desire that reminds us we are still alive, still capable of feeling, still human? Of course, like all things, balance is key. The danger of excess is not in the act itself, but in what it might replace: true connection, shared intimacy, the emotional nourishment that comes from being close to another. When self-stimulation becomes a substitute for meaningful relationships, rather than a complement to them, it risks diminishing rather than enriching life. As we age, self-awareness becomes one of our greatest allies. With each passing year, we have the opportunity to shed the unnecessary burdens of guilt, shame, and outdated social taboos. In doing so, we make space for something greater: self-acceptance, freedom, and a deeper appreciation of the body, not as an object of judgment, but as a vessel of experience, sensation, and life itself. Because at its core, sexuality, whether shared or solitary, is not just about pleasure. It is about presence, connection, and the simple but profound truth that we are, in every sense, still here. Do you think society should be more open about intimacy in old age? Comment yes or no below and tell me why. Masturbation, like a comforting ritual, can be a source of relaxation, relief, and even a reminder that passion doesn't have an expiration date. But when it shifts from an enjoyable indulgence into an emotional escape, one that replaces genuine human connection, it might be time to take a step back and ask, what am I really craving? Loneliness is a tricky thing. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it sneaks in subtly, disguised as the preference to stay in rather than socialize, or the quiet voice that says, why bother? When self-pleasure becomes a stand-in for meaningful interaction, it can be a signal that something deeper needs tending to. The truth is, no matter our age, we are wired for connection. While masturbation can be a satisfying way to relieve stress, it can't replace the warmth of a real conversation, the reassurance of a familiar voice, or the irreplaceable comfort of physical touch. Whether that's holding hands, hugging a grandchild, or simply sitting beside a friend. One concern that often arises, particularly for those who grew up in a time when sexuality was wrapped in mystery and myths, is whether too much self-pleasure can cause physical harm. Let's set the record straight. There's no scientific evidence that masturbation damages sexual health, weakens the body, or speeds up aging. Despite old wives' tales about it causing blindness, frailty, or even some mysterious depletion of life force, medical studies have repeatedly shown that self-pleasure has no long-term physical risks. In fact, it has benefits, helping with blood circulation, preserving genital health, and even promoting better sleep. That said, balance is everything. Too much of anything, even something as harmless as self-pleasure, can leave a person feeling more drained than satisfied. Overindulgence in masturbation can work the same way, leaving one physically tired, mentally foggy, and, ironically, even lowering sexual desire over time. Instead of feeling fulfilled, some find themselves chasing satisfaction that never quite arrives. So how do we keep things in check? It starts with mindfulness, tuning into what truly brings joy and balance. If self-pleasure is an enjoyable part of life, fantastic. But if it starts replacing time spent with loved ones, interfering with personal goals, or becoming a default response to stress or boredom, it might be worth exploring other ways to nourish the soul. Engaging in hobbies, fostering friendships, trying something new, whether it's yoga, painting, or joining a community group, can bring a sense of fulfillment that no solo activity can fully replace. At the end of the day, sexuality in later years isn't about restrictions. It's about understanding. The goal isn't to deny pleasure, but to embrace it in a way that enhances, rather than diminishes, our well-being. A balanced approach ensures that self-pleasure remains just that, pleasurable, while keeping space for the deeper connections and joys that make life truly rich. In the grand tapestry of life, sexuality is a thread that remains woven into our existence, no matter our age. Masturbation, when practiced with self-awareness and balance, can be a wonderful source of both physical and emotional well-being, offering relaxation, stress relief, and even a sense of connection with one's own body. It's a simple pleasure, and like a favorite song or a cherished comfort food, it can bring joy in just the right measure. But as with all things, balance is key. When self-pleasure begins to take the place of deeper human connections, or when it starts interfering with the things that bring meaning, whether that's friendships, hobbies, or shared intimacy with a partner, it's worth pausing and reflecting. Are we using it to enhance our lives, or are we using it to escape from something deeper? The answer lies not in guilt or restriction, but in self-awareness. The beauty of aging is that it comes with the wisdom to make more conscious choices. By maintaining a mindful approach to self-pleasure, we ensure that it remains a positive part of life, rather than a distraction from the richness of relationships, experiences, and personal growth. Life is meant to be embraced in all its forms, from moments of solitude to the warmth of companionship. So, as we wrap up this discussion, take a moment to reflect. What resonates with you? What insights have you gained about your own relationship with intimacy, pleasure, and connection? The conversation doesn't end here. These are topics worth exploring, discussing, and celebrating. And if this conversation has sparked a new perspective, or even just given you something to think about, then we're glad to have shared this space with you. Here's to a life well lived, one that honors pleasure, connection, and the deep understanding that we are never too old to explore, learn, and grow. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insightful content like this.